in Missoula, and we are focusing this year on updating you on what's happening in Missoula and in the state for young children. This is sponsored by the Healthy Start Council, which is a subgroup of the Forum for Children and Youth. I would like to thank the two people that are mainly responsible for coordinating and putting on this event for our community every year. Susan Barmeyer, would you raise your hand? She's at the back of the room. Susan is the coordinator of the Healthy Start Coalition, and the coordinator for all of the coalitions, the Forum for Children and Youth, is Jory Fracke, and Jory is at the back of the room. Would you raise your hand, please? The two of them have worked with this organization for many years, and we really appreciate everything that you've brought to the community. We have some people in our audience that are running for office, and some of them may not be here yet, but anyone that is running for office in the May 6th school election or the June 3rd primary election, would you please stand? We are. Yes. Our keynote speaker, John Bollinger, our state lieutenant governor. Also, before we get started, a very critical thank you is to St. Patrick's Hospital. They have hosted this event for the last 3 years, and not only have they provided us with the wonderful facility, but they have also provided us with our lunches for today. So, on behalf of them, thank you. On your agenda, at the very bottom of the page, is a tear apart for us to get feedback for your reactions. So please, actually I'm going to ask you before our speakers get started to tear it apart so that you can begin filling it out and not forget to turn it in at the back of the room when you leave. Susan also wanted me to remind you that at the back of the agenda are also statistics on the state of Missoula and Montana's young children, and she will follow up with that later, but be sure to read the back of the sheet before you leave. Is Janet Ewan here? Or Jennifer Ewan? Yes. Oh, Jennifer Ewan would like to share some comments from Senator Max Baucus before we get started.
So I'll just hold it. Hello. Max couldn't be here, so he sent a letter along for me to read. Hello, friends. I'm sorry I can't be there at the State of the Young Child Symposium. This is an important event, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Health Start Council and the Missoula Forum for Young Children for making it a reality. Montana's future belongs to our children. They will be the stewards of Big Sky country long after the rest of us have gone. We must make sure they are awarded every opportunity to shine, to learn, and to grow up healthy and happy. I'm committed to doing what's right for Montana's kids. I'm fighting to expand the children's health insurance program to keep them healthy and early education programs to jumpstart their futures. And I'm committed to bringing in good-paying jobs so when they grow up, they can stay right here and raise their children under the big sky. Please enjoy the rest of the symposium. All the best, Max. Thank you. And on a side note, I work for Max's Senate office here in town, and I do handle all legal, judicial, child support, child welfare issues. So if any of you have any issues that you need addressed or problems with an agency or anything, please contact me. I'm the person for Max in the state of Montana. So thank you.
I did forget to mention one thing when we wanted anyone running for office to stand up. Everyone running for office from both parties and independents has been invited to this event today, and so I do not want, under any circumstances, for it to be misconstrued that this is a political event and showcase of political opinions. Our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Governor John Bollinger, has blessed us with his keynote address today. He is a former state legislator, both in the House and in the Senate. He has been a long-time small business owner in the state and is a proud father of 6 children and many grandchildren. He has been a long-time champion for children and children's issues, and that's one reason why he's consented to speak with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, our Lieutenant Governor, John Bollinger.
Well, thank you, Mary Glenn. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll see if I can anchor this and get on with some prepared remarks. But before I get into the subject at hand, I just want to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be with you today to discuss this very important question of early childhood development, the care for, I think of Montana's greatest resource, its children. I always thought it's a pleasure for me to be in Missoula, the Garden City. It was my home during the time I was in school here at the university. But I was so eager to get through school and go to work that I failed to recognize the beauty of this community. And I think that's true with a lot of us that were in school in the late 50s. We were so driven. I mean, we had to go out and get a job and work till we die. And then suddenly, it occurred to us somewhere along the way we missed something. And so every year I look forward to the opportunity to return to Missoula for homecoming and to see old friends. And I have the good fortune of having a daughter who lives here, Jeannie Cox. She teaches chemistry at Hellgate High School, and she has 3 children. And we have an adopted daughter, Peggy Ann Moses. Peggy, if you'll stand and let people see you. It's always good to... We grew up together. That is to say, we moved into Peggy's neighborhood. And my daughter Jeannie and Peggy have maintained this friendship for these many years. I have traveling with me today 2 very important and very helpful people in our administration. Firstly, Jan Lombardi. Jan is our administration's advisor on matters concerning education and childhood issues. And she's someone that I hope you'll become acquainted with, someone who you can share your thoughts and ideas with, and these are ideas that will, I think, float to the governor and ideas that could be part of public policy. So become acquainted with Jan. And I also have traveling with me Dustin DeYoung. Dustin is my administrative assistant. Sometimes I think of him as a left hand and a right hand. He seems to get me where I'm supposed to be on time, and that's important. I'm the sort of person that can sometimes overcommit. That is to say, yes, of course I can be there. And I put myself in 2 places at one time, and that's hard to do. And so to save me the embarrassment of those kind of occasions, I need a scheduler and someone that will help plan my day and my life. So that if you ever need to contact me, be sure and get a hold of Dustin, because he does manage my schedule. Well, our administration, Governor Schweitzer and I, place its highest concern on those initiatives that affect Montana's children as it relates to education and to health care, And we do this under the title of Best Beginnings. Now, one might ask, how can we measure our commitment to best beginnings? Well, I think one of the easiest ways to measure it would be to look at the level of funding the Governor Schweitzer has made towards this effort. Since we took office in January of 2005, we have seen an increase in funding this is ongoing funding for education, K-12, of some $182.7 million. This is new money that has been built into our base for continuing education. This represents a 32% increase in base funding for K-12. In addition, the governor has approved of one-time only money of some $262 million. And part of that $262 million is found in the efforts to make the teachers' retirement system whole. As some of you may know, it was underwater by someone, well, we put $100 million into it it's a moral and legal obligation that the state of Montana has. And we were not actuarially sound, but now with this $100 million infusion of new money, we are coming closer to being there. The additional one-time money, some of it has been placed in the funds that would be made available to improve our schools. We have a lot of deferred maintenance in our public schools around the state. Some of that money is being used for that purpose too. The centerpiece of our new money focuses on the importance of full-time kindergarten. We think of this as a key piece in building a strong academic future for all Montana children. It's the way we build a strong workforce for tomorrow. From here, when we're through, I get to go to Hellgate High School, where I will visit with my daughter Jeannie, and I'll meet faculty and students from Hellgate, and I always look forward to that. On September 10th of 2007, Governor Schweitzer was invited to Telluride, Colorado, where he was the keynote speaker at the economic seminar on early childhood investment. Investment in early childhood is not only good for Montana, and it's good for all states. And this has become an awakening for many states. But I think Montana they awakened a little sooner than many. And the governor was there to speak to them about the efforts Montana has made to give life to early childhood programs. It's our belief that investments made in early childhood programs are investments in not only a sound economic future for the kid, but one of emotional stability, and one that will help them grow and mature into the kind of people that we can all be proud of. It's the sort of an investment that will allow children to become not only successful academically, but successful in life. As Governor Schweitzer is fond of saying, kindergarten opens the door for all children. It gets them ready for college, and it teaches them that they can succeed. How important at an early age to be told, you can do this, you can succeed. And that's what kindergarten, and part of its goal is to leave this understanding with young people that they can succeed, they can do this work. 2 years ago, I was invited to attend a National Lieutenant Governors Conference in Asheville, North Carolina. And while there, I had the opportunity to meet former North Carolina Governor Jim Hunt. Governor Hunt is a strong advocate for education, and he created what, during his time of office, he was elected in 1977, and when he came into office, he realized that, the schools in North Carolina are not all that good. And as a consequence, people look upon North Carolina as kind of a backwoods state. Some think of us as hillbillies. Some think of us as all but illiterate. He said, this is not good. We've got to change that. And the way we change that is to make an investment in education. So during his first term in office, he led the legislature to provide funding for kindergarten. And in his second term in office, he said, this is good, but we know that we can do better. We need pre-kindergarten. And so North Carolina took that additional step, and one that said, we're going to make money available for pre-kindergarten. And today, what are the results? North Carolina has some of the finest public schools in this country. North Carolina has one of the most dynamic economies in this country. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to be. And this is a vision that Governor Schweitzer and I have for the state of Montana. With the kind of investments that we have made and we will continue to make in education, we see that Montana can be like North Carolina. There are people out here that think, well, we're sort of a backwoods state. We barely know how to read and write, and we're sort of slow. We're going to show them otherwise. We're going to show them that we are going to be on the cutting edge of education and on the cutting edge of opportunity for our young people. And it all starts with early childhood education and the investment that the state of Montana is willing to make. When I came in, I guess I am wired up. Wired, I've had a couple of cups of that wonderful Starbucks coffee. That'll do it to you. But when I came in, I was given this wonderful Kids Count data book. And I think that the picture of this young man on the cover is so very telling. Get a copy of this and study the data, but first, look at this can-do expression on this young man's face. We can't disappoint him. We can't disappoint him. We've got to make sure that doors are open for this person and all young people like him. And we can do that with our investment in education. It's interesting, but Governor Hunt talks about, I've got a quote from him. I must read you this quote. He says, education is our future. It's everything. We must not settle for anything short of excellence in our schools. And that's an attitude that our administration has adopted. Jan Lombardi is going to hold us to this. She's going to show us how we can make those investments and how we can promise a better future for all of our children. Governor Hunt learned, and he freely admits this, that the sooner we make these investments in our children's education, the better chance they'll have to become a successful student, not only in high school, but in college, giving them the necessary skills to become a successful member of the workforce. And as a consequence, North Carolina is a place where a lot of people want to be. And we want that same vision to be held for Montana. Our administration believes that all children are born ready to learn. And it takes communities. It takes parents and educators and business leaders to ensure that children get the best beginnings possible, to guarantee their success for today as well as tomorrow. We're proud of the commitment and the partnerships that have been created in communities around the state. In June of 2006, 14 community teams and a statewide team met in Helena to identify ways to coordinate early childhood services that could lead to better policies for our young children. We found these consistent themes emerging. One, the need for increased public awareness about the importance of child development and the demand for professional development and training, not only for parents, but for staff, as well as community leaders. During these discussions, teams were introduced to the Ready Child Equation that was created by the National School Readiness Indicators Project. Children's readiness for school is made up of a multiple of components and is shaped by numerous factors. Improving school readiness must address children's development of skills and behaviors, as well as environments in which they spend their time. This includes families, communities, services, and schools in order to ensure that the children's readiness program will function properly. In October of 2006, here in Missoula, a partnership with the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation enabled us to hold Business Leadership Summit on school readiness. There were nearly 75 business leaders that joined state leaders and representatives from this community to learn about the strong connection between quality education and economic development. Success is dependent upon this kind of relationship, this sort of buy-in and partnership that can be created. This session that was held 2 years ago discussed the strategies that support families and young business and young children, and how businesses can invest in young children to help Montana be workforce ready. Got more. The Business Summit concluded with attendees, those who were in attendance, feeling that, we're ready to commit to school and the school readiness program here in Missoula as well as across the state. Were any of you that are here today present at that summit? Good for you, good for you. Thank you very much. Did you find that it was as exciting an experience as we've read about? Wonderful. Well, I've got good news, because there's going to be another summit that the Washington Foundation is going to fund. And it's going to bring again leaders from this community to kind of take the pulse to see how we're progressing, see how well we've achieved the goals that we've established, and continue moving forward. So to the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, we say thank you for their support and for their buy-in on this very important matter. Well, we believe that Montana is well on its way to becoming a ready state, so that all children are ready for school and that they're moving forward. Montana continues to use the Ready Child Equation and provide an opportunity for consistent community involvement. The Early Child Service Bureau created a statewide information campaign about early childhood and school readiness. If you've not seen the information that has been gathered, if you go to the Department of Public Health and Human Services webpage, you can click on a link that will allow you to follow the progress of that project. I mentioned that the Washington Foundation is collaborating with our state in an effort to hold another economic study of early care and education here in Montana. And the results of that study will be available in May. And again, you can follow the results of that study with the website that the Department of Public Health and Human Services have set aside. Well, I'd like to conclude my remarks to you by expressing my gratitude for this invitation to speak with you today. I am here to congratulate you for your interest in this very, very important matter. And I want to give a special thanks to those of you that have been involved. You've had your hands on this project, and you're providing the energy, you're providing the vision for a future, and you're going to make this work for not only the city of Missoula, but for all Montana. Again, I want to thank you and wish you well in this conference. I wish I could stay with you for the whole conference, but I want to see my baby, who teaches school here in Missoula, and meet some of her students. So again, thank you very much.
We really appreciate you helping set the tone for our gathering today. Lieutenant Governor Bollinger, John Bollinger, John, he set the tone with how we're preparing for readiness. And next, our second keynote speaker is going to focus on responsibility and the responsibilities that we have. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce Dr. Ann Manctolo. And Dr. Manctolo is a pediatric surgeon associated with Community Medical Center, and she will further explain her credentials today.
Thank you. And you do a testing just to make sure the mic is fine for you. Oh, can you hear me all right?
It's not gonna, we need to,
Let me see if I can.
I think we just, yeah.
Okay.
But,
Let me see if I can go forward and back.
well, I think we're gonna work with one screen. Can you guys over there see this one screen over here? Okay, we're working with one screen then.
That's fine.
Unless Terry knows.
Yeah, she showed me that it's not working. We're in two. I can mute it. But you need to go on. Okay, good, all right.
Success.
Do you want me to push, you
No.
push there to, you're gonna
Okay,
do
I'm
that?
fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. Well, I'd like to thank Susan and her committee for asking me to speak today. And it's lovely to see so many people here. You can hear I'm English. I've been in Montana for 5 years. I'm a pediatric surgeon, and I've been in practice for 12 years. And I love Montana. I love Missoula. And hopefully it's going to be my home. I'm going to talk a little bit today about responsibility. And the reason I picked this subject was, there we go. It's occurred to me that over the past few years, I see a lot of parents and a lot of families, and I see a lot of different parenting skills. And this may be a reflection of my age, but I'm beginning to think that people are taking less and less responsibility for their own health. They're getting less common sense when it comes to health issues. And if we continue the way that we're going, our children are not going to have the wherewithal to get through life in a healthy way. And so that's really what I want to concentrate my talk on today. What gives me the right or the expertise to talk on this subject? I'm not a parent. I married late in life and we didn't have children. So I've never brought up a small child. But as I say, in the time that I've been working in pediatrics, which is most of my adult life, I've come to see a lot of parents and a lot of adults respond to children in the different way that they set rules for their children and encourage their children to go along in life. So I'm speaking from that point of view. It doesn't give me full expertise because I think that, when you're a parent and you have a toddler and maybe you have a baby as well and the toddler's having a screaming fit in the grocery store, I think, oh, thank goodness I'm not there. Because I think it's the hardest job in the world to be a parent and to do it well. I think as physicians, we are also responsible for some of this inability of people to take responsibility for their own health. Because as physicians, we have encouraged people to go to the physician and give that responsibility to the physician. And so people have become less and less able and feel less and less safe about taking on that responsibility for themselves. And so at the slightest cough or cold or fever, they turn up in the emergency room. And I think as physicians and as healthcare workers, we need to put that emphasis back on the family and involve the family and involve the child in their healthcare decisions. Family-centered care, which I'm sure you've all heard about. But I think that's part of our responsibility for getting us where we are now. A lot of the conditions that lead to chronic illnesses, such as obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, are in a way, if you look at them, self-inflicted diseases. That doesn't mean to say that if we all lived absolutely healthy lives, they would all go away. But there are a lot of things that we as individuals can do that would affect those diseases. And also if you look at prematurity and some of the congenital abnormalities such as spina bifida, some of those things can be ameliorated by people taking care of themselves in pregnancy. So taking multivitamins, taking your folic acid. There's been some recent studies done on stress and prematurity and learning how to cope with stress and learning how to deal with stressful situations. And we can't get rid of stress. Life is stressful. But learning how to deal with that may help us not to have so many premature babies. And I'd like to suggest that even a young child can be encouraged to assume some responsibility for his or her health. So when I'm looking at the problem that all this has brought about, health insurance is, one of the big issues these days. And 23% of Montana children are covered by Medicaid. About 13% of Montana children are not insured. And if you look at those 13% of uninsured children, 52% of those, so half of those uninsured children are actually eligible for Medicaid or CHIP. So why that doesn't happen, there must be something in the system that's not allowing that to happen. 40% of pediatric patients, and probably in my practice, 50 to 60% of pediatric patients are covered by Medicaid. Medicaid does not reimburse either the provider or the hospital. They reimburse about 50% of the costs. So there are a lot of physicians out there that aren't able to or won't take new Medicaid patients, and that's a problem. When we're looking at the cost of chronic illnesses, this little girl here is one of my patients. She was born premature. She has chronic lung disease. She's been on a ventilator now for about 4 years on and off, and she's gradually getting off, but she's got a tracheostomy. She has a feeding tube because she couldn't eat normally as a child, a baby. She spent a long time on the NICU, the neonatal intensive care. I can't imagine what her bills were. She's adopted now by Shelley, who's the lady that's sitting behind her, and that's Deb, one of our nurses up on pediatrics. The cost of her health care has been enormous so far, and it's going to go into her adulthood because of her problems, because she was born prematurely. And so there are things there that could be helped if that mother had maybe looked after her health and not had a premature baby. Now, that's not to say that all premature babies are because the mum doesn't look after their health, but there are certain things that we can do to try and prevent it. Stress-related problems, school shootings. How many do we hear about those these days on the TV? Suicide, drug problems, alcohol problems in our youth in Montana. Unfortunately, they are higher than a lot of the country. I think if we could teach our children how to deal with stress when they were little, they would be better able to deal with some of that as they were growing up. I put nuclear family down there, the breakdown of the nuclear family. I don't know that I really believe in a nuclear family. I believe in caregivers that love their children. Whether that's a nuclear family, whether it's a single family, whether it's two partners of the same sex, whatever. As long as you love and care for the children, to me, that's a nuclear family. So I think when you talk, when I hear this, on the news about, how the family is breaking down, I don't think that's actually true. I just think the family is changing. And we've got this sort of, it's not my fault mentality, the victim psychology. And I probably notice this a little bit more coming from England because, we don't have so much litigation and stuff in England at the moment. I think it's going that way. But a lot of this, it's not my fault mentality, adds to that I'm not taking responsibility for myself and my actions. So things I'm going to sort of just touch on briefly during this time is diet and food-related issues. And I know that probably a lot of you were here last year, and Maxwell talked about obesity and the problems with obesity, which is a big problem with children as well as adults these days. Activity, and that relates a little bit to that. How to cope with stress and stress and coping strategies, relationships, self-esteem and rules, safety issues, and then a little bit on regular checkups and immunizations and associated things. Let's start with food, because we all love food. I think it's really important to, when we talk about obesity in children and food, not to instill in our children a fear of food. We really actually need to instill into our children a love of food, but a love of food in the right relationship with food. I think a lot of our problem in our society with diets and restricting ourselves and stuff is not the right way to have a good attitude to food. And so I think if you can start early with children with a good attitude to food, then you're halfway there. We all know that, obesity these days is probably due to mostly fast food and portion sizes. Our portion sizes have just gone off the roof. High fructose corn syrup is in everything. It's awful when you start reading labels, how many labels have high fructose corn syrup in. And processed foods, juices, we all think, it's healthy to give our children fruit juices. Fruit juices have an awful lot of sugar in them. And I occasionally will see children who 3 or 4 years of age, who've had diarrhea forever, and you look at them and you look at the amount of fruit juice that they're taking, and those children are drinking fruit juice preferentially throughout the day, so much so that they really aren't hungry for food, and the high fructose in the fruit juice is giving them diarrhea. You get that out of their diet and they've gone back to normal. I think fruit juice, I see a lot of children who drink a lot of milk. Milk is great, but too much, and if you're sensitive to it, you get constipation, and you're doing a harm. So food is sort of in moderation for everything. The other thing that we need to realize about obesity is that it's a family problem. And if you talk to people that work in big obesity clinics with children, one of the things that is emphasized over and over again is this is a family problem. You cannot expect, maybe you have one chubby 4-year-old in the family, but the other children aren't. You cannot tackle that problem and help that child if the rest of the family don't buy into it. You know, and you're still buying the cookies, you're still buying the chips, you have them in the cupboard, you know, but the 4-year-old isn't allowed them. It's not going to work. It's a family problem, as a lot of healthcare is. And it worries me when I go to pediatric surgery meetings like I did last year, and probably a half to a full day of the 3-day meeting was talking about gastric bypass surgeries in adolescents. We haven't got there here in this state yet, but in the big centers, in Cincinnati, in North Carolina, South Carolina, children over the age of about 10 these days are getting gastric bypass surgery. And it's really a life-changing problem. Those children are children that are so obese, they have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, they may have cardiac disease. Let's not go there in Montana, because it's not the way that we need to go. It's not giving those children the right message, and it's not the way to tackle this problem. I think that family mealtimes are one of the most important things for teaching children how to eat properly and for instilling in children relationships in the family. It's a place that you can sit down together, you can talk together, you can talk about the day's problems, you can bring up things that otherwise wouldn't be brought up, and you can talk about them in a non-threatening atmosphere. And I know these days with our busy lives, it's very difficult to take that time to have a meal where you sit down together. And maybe you can't do it every night, but maybe you can do it once or twice a week. Maybe you can just do it on Sunday evenings. But, you know, I think it's an important issue, and I'll tell you a funny little story here. My family, there's me and my brother, who's 2 years older than me, and we always sat down to a meal in the evenings together, and I think I was about 9 at the time, and I came home from school, and we're sitting down and having dinner, and I said to Mum, guess what happened at school today? Vera started bleeding from her bottom. I knew nothing about periods. And my brother's ears, I mean, he's 2 years older than me, you know, they pricked up. So there and then at the table we had a sex discussion. We talked about periods, we talked about pregnancy, we talked about, you know, and it was my introduction to things. And so it was just like, okay, we talk about this over the dinner table. It's something normal. You know, we don't have to go and have this big, you know, birds and bees talk about it. And that's the sort of thing that if you have time to sit down at a meal with your children, that sort of thing will come up. And so it solves your problems of how am I going to talk to them about this, and it solves their problems of knowing about it. You have to have some rules, and I'm not going to tell you how to give rules in your household, but you have to have some rules where food are concerned, because if you don't, we all like the cookies, we all like the donuts, we all like the candy. And, you know, if it comes between peas and candy, you know, most kids are going to go to the candy. So you have to have some rules, and you have to set them and stick to them. And children love to get involved when it comes to food. Most children, most little ones, get them to plant a few carrot seeds, get them to plant some peas, take them to the farmer's market, let them pick out the vegetables. Let's find a vegetable today that we don't know what it is, and we'll go home and cook it. Let's make it exciting. Let's find out where the food comes from. Let's go and find a farm where the chicken are laying eggs. Let's go and look at where the beef comes from. Let's do all the grisly details of it, That's how children get involved with their food, and that's how they begin to learn what food is good for you and what food isn't good for you. Portion size as well. There's lots of, I'm sure you've seen these little printout things, a portion of meat should be the size of a deck of cards. A portion of cheese should be a couple of dice, or die as you call them. Let them measure, get a bit of math in there as well. Let's measure our meat today and see how big it is. Is that right? Let's do all these different things. It takes patience and it takes time, but if we don't do this, we're not going to solve the problems. Activity. We all know the health benefits of activity. Weight control, obviously, mood, self-esteem, sleep. It's been looked at. If children can get half an hour to an hour of vigorous activity a day, they'll sleep better. It helps them to communicate. It helps them to share if they're in a soccer team or a baseball team or something like that. Problem is, we have to be the role models. They'll do what we do. We have to get out there and do it with them. It's no good, pushing them off and expecting them to do it. They're not going to see that it's a good thing to do if Dad and Mum are sitting in the armchair watching the TV. See how you can incorporate it into your daily lives. And obviously, the computer is great, websites are great, Game Boys are great, TV's great, but it has its limitations. Talking a little bit about stress and coping skills, I think a lot of a lot of the misbehavior that I see in the office is partly frustration on the part of the little children, that they can't express what they want to express, and the only way they can get attention is to misbehave. And so I'm very lucky in the office. I have Terry, who's sitting over there, who is my nurse, and she helps me a lot with the children to distract them if we're doing something. If I'm trying to talk to the parents and the parents can't listen to me because the toddler's misbehaving. So distraction, giving them choices. I don't give them a choice as to whether I can examine them or not. I give them a choice of, well, do you want to lie on the floor and let me look at your tummy, or do you want to lie on my couch and let me look at your tummy? And I give them that choice, give them boundaries that they can comprehend, but looking at the tummy is not an option. That's going to happen. We live in a wonderful place. I mean, one of the things I love about Montana is, you walk outside and there are the mountains and everything. Connection with nature and getting outside is being looked at more and more as to what it does for us. And even in children these days, there have been several research studies that looked at cognitive development, emotional development, self-esteem, relationships, intimacies, all of those healthy relationships, all of those things, if you can get the child out there to appreciate nature, will help. These research projects, the positive effects of nature, they said, were strongest in middle childhood, so 6 to 12, which I thought was interesting. When you get to the adolescent end, it's more about doing those sort of things in nature that challenge you, rock climbing, doing things in a group, peer interaction. But in that early thing, from 6 to 12, it's all about just being in nature and experiencing it. One of the things that I also think that children have problems with these days is getting enough sleep. I don't think that we as a nation, adults included, get enough sleep half the time. And I think our children these days are so busy with schoolwork, after school activities, all of this sort of thing, that sometimes we don't realize that they're not getting the amount of hours of sleep that they need. And it has been shown that if you don't get enough sleep, then your coping skills and your reaction to stress is so much worse. I know sometimes it's difficult to get them to sleep, but doing little rituals and having a period before they go to bed where it's a calm, sort of relaxing atmosphere can certainly help. Just touching a little bit on safety issues. Is there anybody from Safe Kids here? Good. Safe Kids, as many of you know, is an association in Missoula, Montana, that looks at basically any sort of activity that children do where we need to think about safety. So car seats, bicycle helmets, fire, water hazards, that sort of thing. And I'll just make a plug for Safe Kids. They have a Safe Kids Day coming up at Walmart where there's a lot of different activities going on and the children can get involved in those, and it's great fun. But it's never too early to talk to your children about behaviors, activities, why we wear helmets, why we wear car seats, and get them involved with all that sort of thinking. Obviously, if as a parent you're going to go out on your bike without your helmet, but you insist that your children wear one, that's really not going to fly. Kids like to know that you practice what you preach. I put sex education there because I also think it's never too early to start talking to children about anatomy, what is bad touching, what is good touching. If you start when they're a toddler and they know the vocabulary and they know what they've got as opposed to what their brother's got or whatever, it's easier when you get older to talk about sex education. It's much, much easier to talk about, how you get pregnant, when you should get pregnant, that sort of thing, than it is if you haven't even touched that. And I think as adults we need to get over our shyness about that sort of thing. Some of my patients call me the poop doctor because I have a book in my office that's called Everybody Poops, and I see a lot of children with constipation. So we talk a lot about poop, we talk a lot about peeing. We need to get over these social sort of barriers about this because it's part of health, we need to talk about it. Okay, doctor's visits. You and your child are part of the healthcare team. You need to ask questions, you need to educate yourself, you need to educate your child. Never before has there been so much information out there that we can get hold of and we can share with our children, or that is specifically aimed at children for them to be educated about their health. On the table out there that Terry, Michelle, and Jeannie have set up, there are a lot of handouts there that are specifically directed at children. There's a website called Kids Health, and they talk about, why do I burp? What is this? What is the other? It's really interesting stuff. There are games that they can play. If your child has reflux, there's a website called Gertie, which talks all about reflux and what to eat and what not to eat and how to attack. Kids can start doing this at a very young age. And if we start them understanding their health at a young age, they're much more likely to alter their behavior so that they take care of it. If we force it on them, then it's not going to happen. Well visits are a great way to get your child comfortable with the doctor. If every time your child goes to the doctor they get an immunization, obviously they're not going to like going to the doctor. So, even if it means making a visit in between times, to just go to the office, say hi to the nurse, pretend like you're going to a visit if your child has a fear of going to the doctor. Do that. Get them over that fear, because if they grow up fearing going to the doctor, that's not going to help at all. What really gets me annoyed is if I have a parent that comes into the office, and as I start to go into the room, the child's screaming and the mum's saying, "If you don't shut up, the doctor's going to give you a shot." That really puts me on a good footing. So that's not what I want to do. Medical home is a thing that people are talking about now, and again, there's a handout on our table out there about it. Basically, what that means is it's more directed to children with chronic problems. Like this little guy here, the one that's building the tower, Zane, he has spina bifida and has a lot of different medical problems, and he's going to be a child that needs what we call a medical home. A collection of people that help to look after him, that can transition him from childcare into adult care, that can look after his physical therapy, his occupational therapy, his bowel problems, that know Zane. And that, to me, it would be ideal for every child, but at the moment with our healthcare system, I think it's a little bit pie in the sky, but it's what we should aim at. As I say, and I felt coming here today that I'm preaching to the choir, that none of you would be here if you didn't agree with 90% of what I said and try to do it. And there are parents and caregivers in social situations where this is like icing on the cake for them. They're getting through the day, they're just getting from meal to meal, paycheck to paycheck, and you can't expect them to think about these things as well and do them. But I think as people in our situation where we're dealing with children in education, or we're dealing with children in early childhood development, or whatever our position in life, we are each in a unique position to influence other people. Even if it means having that family next door over to a family dinner with you to see how it works. That sort of thing, just small gestures. But unless we start at that sort of level, it's not going to go up to the next level. I just want to end with the fact that I think if we as a nation don't raise our young children with a sense of responsibility for themselves and for their health, then whatever other initiatives are taken by government, whether we continue in the healthcare system that we have, whether we go to a social healthcare system, which is like what I came from in England, none of that's going to matter, because we can't continue to ignore these issues and expect somebody to fix us when we're broken. We have got to start taking responsibility for our own health, and that starts with the children. So it takes a conscious effort, it takes being a good role model, it takes taking time for this. And it's about reconnecting with what's really important in life, and it takes patience. I'm not saying it's easy. And as I say, I think parenting is one of the most difficult things in the world. And I'd just like to end with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, who said, "One's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes, and the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility." Thank you.
Disengage your little microphone.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. Dr. Mantelo was definitely talking to the choir, preaching to the choir, and that's one reason why we have this event every year, is so that we can find out the state of our community, the state of our children, and we appreciate the update for the readiness and also what our responsibilities are. Before I introduce the next segment of our presentation, because we're talking to the choir, preaching to the choir, I want to remind you again that this is sponsored by the Forum for Children and Youth and the Healthy Start Coalition. And a lot of the agencies that are working to bring this on are listed on the Forum for Children and Youth website. And I would like to give that to you right now, so you write it down if you're not familiar with it. It's www.missoulaforum.org. Some of the preventative measures, a lot of activities that are going on in the community to help get us away from our TVs and out in the community are listed on that forum website and on the bulletin board. And so some of you are with agencies. Be sure to refer that to your clients. Some of you are parents and you're wondering what to do in the community and how to get out and about. A lot of ideas are on that website for you. Now we have the last portion of our presentation where we are going to find out the state of children and families in Missoula. And the first portion, when we're talking about how we are ready and how we're taking responsibility, is going to be a presentation on full-time kindergarten. And I would like to introduce our superintendent, Jim Clark, and the Bonner principal. Where are you? Oh, there you are, okay. Brian Bissett. Oh, okay. We weren't sure if you wanted to co-present.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here today. Thank you for taking your time to be here and for giving us an opportunity to visit with you about full-time kindergarten today for me. And Brian will also be speaking from a smaller school perspective. We in Missoula County Public Schools have about 550 students in full-time kindergarten this year. And it was really a rather monumental task to get all of the organization ready, from the teacher perspective to the equipment perspective to the facility perspective, and then to the parent perspective. What are we going? Can these children do this on a full-time basis? So of those 550 students that we had starting full-time kindergarten last fall, we gave the parents the option of a half-time experience or a full-time experience for their children. 12 students ended up in a half-time out of that 550. And we asked the parents to commit to the whole year because we bused those kids to a location. So just 12 of the 550 kids started in a half-time and continued through the year in a half-time. We actually have 13 now. We had one move in during the year. Before the school year started, kindergarten teachers got together and looked at how could they present full-time kindergarten so that, number one, the kids got the greatest advantage out of it. Number two, we promised not to make it the new first grade. That was very important to those teachers and to us, that we not try to make this just a jamming down of the curriculum to make all those kids first graders at the beginning of the school year. And then the last part was to provide them some opportunities to get together during the year and to talk about their experience and to see how we can improve it for the coming year. So of those factors, the most interesting part to me was that the teachers were absolutely exhausted at the beginning of the school year. Teachers who are not used to teaching full-time kindergarten. I don't know about you, but when I go into a kindergarten classroom, I'm always nervous about stepping on one of them. You know, they're there. They're so present. And I spent most of my early career in junior high school. And in junior high school, you never look at the kid you're talking to. You look at the rest of the crowd, because you've got to keep track of all the kids at the same time. So when I go into a kindergarten classroom, I'm always nervous about that. So the kids started their year, the teachers started their year with the students, and what have we found? Number one, we found, the research, of course, supports this, that the students have opportunities for greater depth of learning. They're not going that wider part into first grade. They're going deeper into their own learning. And a lot of it is being able to present a concept, do something else, come back to that concept, do something else, reflect on that concept right before the kids go home, So that repetition as well as the depth of being able to look at that has meant several things. One is that most of the kindergarten kids are reading right now. They're also writing right now, which is not always the case in our half-time kindergarten classrooms. Not that they don't get a good experience, but it's not the same depth. So even though we did not make it first grade, students are able to do more. And they are right now reading and writing. And if you want to see some really fun things, just ask, go to a school and say, can I see something a kindergarten kid wrote? And see what they are writing right now. And of course, you're not as concerned about spelling as you are about writing. What's the idea? How do you write? So those are things that happened at the beginning of the year are happening right now. We'll also say that when I saw a couple of legislators here earlier. Tim is here. Carol Williams, Senator Williams really is responsible for the major sponsorship of the bill that provided the funding for full-time kindergarten. We could not have done it without that. We had adequate funds for our teachers. We had adequate funds for materials. The legislature didn't quite know about facilities, but they didn't force us to do this. So if we didn't have facilities, we didn't have to do full-time kindergarten. And as an example, Bozeman is doing full-time kindergarten for 26% of their kids because they don't have the facilities. We were fortunate enough to be able, well, it's a mixed blessing. When you have empty classrooms, you know why. Our student population has been declining in Missoula, and if you've paid any attention to the concerns that I've had as superintendent, you know that when your funding is based on the number of students you have and the declining enrollment continues, our elementary district, our K-8 district has lost 24% of the enrollment since 1993. That's significant. So we had rooms for these kids, but if you go by Franklin, you go by Lewis and Clark, you'll see two additions that are going on to help accommodate what we displaced this year for full-time kindergarten. We displaced a family resource center. We displaced some other kinds of uses of classrooms in those two schools. And next year, Hawthorne will have classrooms added, not just for full-time kindergarten, but also to meet some needs that that school has had for a long time. We have counselors in old locker rooms off the gym, old restroom locker rooms off the gym, for instance, at Hawthorne. How were we able to do that without coming to you? We did not come to the voters for dollars for facilities. We did that because we've had some building reserve funds that through good planning, good bidding, good management of funds, Gary Bocek, who's now retired, had some funds left over that we could use to do these additions. And that you've done that over the course of the building reserve levies in the past. That's how we were able to do that, and to move some of our rental monies around in our own budget to do that. So we appreciate very much what the legislature did, what Carol Williams did. We do have adequate money for the staff. Overall, you know, I think that our funding in Montana has been litigated again. We're in court, we being the Montana Quality Education Coalition. So the concerns for funding K-12 education in Montana continue for me. I don't mean to ignore this side of the room, I should. That continues to be a concern for me, and it does other school superintendents and school leaders as well. So the Montana Quality Education Coalition has gone back to court and said to the state, show us how you've met the dictates of the court. And those are just some issues that we still have. So as we continue to provide the program for the kids, we do have enough money for the teachers for full-time kindergarten. We will continue that next year. One of the differences is that this coming school year, if you would like your student to be in a half-time situation, we will do that in the home school. The current year, we bust them all to Chief Charlo. Those 12 kids, we had them coming from all over Missoula. And while that was a good experience for them, we don't think it's as good as an experience as leaving those kids in their home school and having a half-time experience there. So that's one change we'll make for this coming school year. Right now, as of last Friday, we were 33 students fewer in terms of registration for kindergarten as we had a corresponding date last year. That is not a good sign. We need to have those kids, you know, our enrollment will not stop declining if we have fewer kids registering each year, and that's been a problem for our school district for the past decade plus. So that's one of the things that is different for next year. Our halftime experience for the kids will give them a good, solid basis for first grade as the full-time does. Thank you for letting me share a little bit, and Brian, I'll let you go from there.
Okay, I brought some notes. I probably should have done a PowerPoint. I had a little too much coffee. I'm going to try to stay on point here. But as he said, I'm the principal at Bonner School, and we are a K-8 district. We're our own district. When our students graduate 8th grade, they go to Hellgate High School and become part of MCPS. Our district has about 350 students, 31 of which are kindergarten students. And it's been, I have nothing but good to say about full-time kindergarten. Our population usually ranges between 50 and 60% free and reduced, which usually means they come in with lower early literacy skills. And what has happened in the past with our halftime programs, which basically our halftime program was 3 hours, and then you would have a special PE, art, music, one of those, recess, snack. So by the time you're said and done, you have about 2 hours for instruction. And obviously with kindergartens, when they're bouncing all over the place, it's hard to have them sit solid for that amount of time, so you have even less instruction. And what we were set up with there is basically we felt like we were just trying to tread water, and we could not get what we needed for our students, so this has been a blessing for us. And we rely on what is called DIBELS assessment. A lot of the schools across the nation use a DIBELS assessment. It basically has some different skills that it tests for early literacy skills to see where kids are going to make sure they're ready to read. And the highest, there's 3 different categories. They test out at benchmark, which is basically grade level. Strategic means they're not quite there, and intensive are our lowest learners. And the highest we had ever scored by the end of the year, or the biggest percentage we had on benchmark, was 65% of our kindergartners basically on grade level. And that was a high year. Typically it's between 40 and 50%. And we have teachers that are doing a fantastic job. They just didn't have the time. So now that we have full-day kindergarten, by January when we did our assessments, we had 68% at benchmark already. So by midway through the year, our scores are higher than they've ever been, and we have more kids at grade level than we've ever had. And we still had half the school year to go. And we'll do our next assessment at the end of May, so I'm excited to see those. And obviously that's going to have a ripple effect down the line. First grade is going to see the benefits of that next year. This year, a lot of our first grade students didn't know even the difference between letters and numbers, which is scary. And again, it's just we didn't have the time. And this next year, our first graders are going to come in knowing all of their sounds, which is huge. We have only one kindergartner that does not know all their sounds at this point. That's far above what we've ever been, so we're excited about that. And we did not make AYP this year, and that was, I don't know how much you know about making AYP, but our schools are all divided into subgroups, and our special ed subgroup did not make it. All the other subgroups did. Chances are the bar raises. Now the bar is higher this year. Chances are our other subgroups are not going to make it as well. So we're going to be in our second year probably. I don't know for sure. I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but realistically we're probably not going to make it this year. But the long-term effects of full-time kindergarten, we're going to get there. I really feel we will. Let's see. Setup for us was much easier. Like I said, we only have 31 kindergartners this year, and we had 2 halftime programs. We had a classroom across the hall that was actually used for our FRC, our Family Resource Center. Unfortunately, it was kind of bad news for them because we moved them to a much smaller room. It's not a closet, but it's kind of close. But for kindergarten, it was easy. We had the facility, so we just added a staff member, and the funding came from the legislature for that. Let's see, I'm kind of scrambling around here a little bit. Basically, full-time kindergarten, the bottom line, it has enhanced opportunities for our students. We have a reading specialist on staff, and what this has allowed us to do is our students are all getting the core curriculum, the core reading instruction in the classroom, and for our students that are low, they get to get pulled out. We actually have time to pull them out and work with them in a small group situation, and because of that, like I mentioned earlier, they all know their sounds, and by the end of the year, most of them will be reading. The social skills part having a safe, structured environment. Now we can offer that for them in a full-day situation. And before, it just didn't make sense because a lot of students come from a preschool, full-day preschool, and then they go to a half-time kindergarten. And not only is that bad academically, socially, but it's also really tough on parents because then they have to find half-time daycare, and it was a mess. So that part has been good as well. And then we're excited to see how they're going to be ready for first grade. And a lot of these things, we're not going to know the effects of the long term until we get down the road here in a few years. And a lot of the concerns were put to rest. And I just highlighted a few concerns that I would hear as this was being kicked around in the legislature last year. One of them was that the kindergartners need naps. And really, at the beginning of the year, a lot of them did. And a lot of the schools, not just ours, but principals, teachers, we all stay in contact throughout other districts, they offer a nap time after lunch, and a lot of times it's set up so it's optional. The kids can lay down, his teacher is reading a story. Some kids fall asleep and they need to, let them sleep. Others are ready to move, they'll interact, and as the year went, probably by the end of October, a lot of them didn't even need the naps anymore. And I forgot to mention too that not only a principal, but I also have a daughter in full-time kindergarten at Target Range. So I've seen it from a parent's standpoint as well and loving it, and she is loving it as well. Some other concerns, too long of a day, they will be tired, and I can tell you, when I get home, my daughter has a lot more energy than I do, so it has not affected her. I'm the one laying on the couch probably, and she's ready to roll. Let's see, let kids be kids. That was a concern I heard. We'll be pushing them too hard. Anytime I'm in the kindergarten classroom, they're still kids, and they're loving life, they're loving being kids, and they're loving learning to read. And not enough curriculum was a concern as well, and like Jim mentioned, not making it a first grade curriculum. And we're not even close to being there in our district at this point. We're hopefully going to meet the full kindergarten curriculum by the end of the year, and all of our kids are going to be proficient in that. So it hasn't been an issue for us, and really, I don't see it being an issue as far as we're teaching them a first grade curriculum because our students just aren't there, and I don't think they will be. Let's see, now what from here? We're going to keep improving. We're going to keep looking at the data. And something else that you may be hearing out there is this RTI thing, this RTI model, which stands, I don't know how familiar you are with this, it's response to intervention, or it's also called response to instruction. And basically this is setting up a school system for the students rather than trying to get the students to fit into the school system. And an example of that is that Dibble's instruction I was talking about, how there's the 3 different levels. You have a system set up, and we've done this with our first, second, and third grade, and we're going to get our kindergarten going into it as well, where we have teachers teaching the different levels and their fluid groups. So if we have students that test on their Dibble's intensive, a lot of times that means they're just missing. The intensive is the lowest, but I'm going to use strategic. If we have some strategic students, they're just missing a couple of things before they can get up to benchmark. So we have that strategic group, and the teacher can pull them along, and we have smaller groups as well for the strategic and intensive. So our system's set up for them, rather than just one teacher trying to meet all those needs. We separate them. And that's that RTI thing. So we're going to plug kindergarten into that, and it's full-time kindergarten in itself is a step towards RTI because it's helping us prepare our kids. And before I close, I want to thank last year's legislators for battling this out. I was every day watching it in February, just checking to see how the status of the bill was and seeing how the battles were. And Linda McCullough, our state superintendent, Governor Schweitzer in his office, they fought hard for it, and we're very thankful they gave us the funding. And we are very excited about it. Thank you.
We're very proud to have such wonderful representatives of our Missoula Public Schools, and thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce Susan Hay Creamer, the CEO of United Way. Thank you.
Thanks. It's really an honor to be here today with so many of you who are working so hard and so effectively for young children and their families. Your work benefits not just the people you help directly, but you're building a better community for all of us, because we all benefit when children grow up safe and can thrive and reach their full potential. So on behalf of United Way of Missoula County, thank you for all you're doing. That's about half my 5 minutes, so I'll get on. Nelson Mandela once said that there can be no keener revelation of the soul of a society than the way in which it treats its children. And although studies show that reports of child abuse and neglect in Missoula are down this year in our society, even one neglected and abused child is too many. Abuse and neglect exact a terrible price, not only on the children themselves who suffer sometimes permanent and irreversible damage, but on society as a whole. Child welfare agencies and hospitals, and including in all likelihood the one we're in today, spend millions of dollars annually addressing just the consequences of physical abuse alone. And one of the greatest tragedies of this is that Montana and national studies show that many of these deaths and much of this abuse and neglect could be prevented. The horrors of child abuse and neglect, understandably, often spark us to focus on punishing the offender and treating the victim. But all authoritative research shows that prevention is key. I'm always quoting Teresa Cowan of the Parenting Place, who I think is here today. She said, punishment and treatment are important, but that's like trying to help people who've fallen off the boat. We need to keep them on the boat in the first place. Prevention keeps them on the boat. And you know that. And I've learned from many of you that Montana is woefully behind other states in funding prevention strategies. Well, prevention is the focus of Missoula Kids Matter, which is United Way of Missoula County's new child abuse and neglect prevention initiative. Its purpose is to raise awareness of and financial support for programs that build strong families, because strong families correlate to reduced incidences of child abuse and neglect. Authoritative national research, quantifiable results show that there are several strategies that, when present, build protective factors proven to reduce abuse and neglect. And Missoula Kids Matter is going to showcase and support programs in Missoula County that do these things, that facilitate friendships and mutual support, reducing the isolation of families, helping them bring together, especially young parents, so that they can forge connections and develop networks. Strengthen parenting by providing parents with formal training and education, home visits, informal opportunities to get together and share information. Programs that respond to family crises. That can often push somebody over the edge. Offering extra support to families when they're suffering job loss, healthcare crisis, substance abuse issues, financial problems. Programs that link families to services and opportunities. Helping work with families to help them meet their education and career and economic goals, connecting them with supportive services and opportunities to build healthy families. Programs that facilitate children's social and emotional development, including by helping kids appropriately express their feelings to parents so that can help improve relationships between parents and children. Programs that observe and respond to early warning signs of abuse or neglect, helping quickly to solve problems, including by confronting hostile parents if necessary. And finally, programs that recognize, value, and reward the hard job of parenting. Parents need to be recognized and rewarded for everything they're doing to improve their parenting skills. When parents take part in programs like this that offer those 7 factors, they become more knowledgeable and better at parenting and in fostering their child's development. They forge stronger social connections and they learn from their peers. They receive concrete support like respite care and emergency child care in times of need, and their children thrive. As you all know, because many of you were here, Missoula is rich with programs that meet these criteria. Many of them are already supported by United Way. Many of them, as I said, many of you are here today. And I want to give a shout out to the 211 program at the Human Resource Council, because they're going to be a critical partner in this effort. The information and referral hotline, which will give parents one easy number to call in times of crisis. In the next couple months, we'll be issuing applications and making grants on a pilot basis for Missoula Kids Matter. You'll also start to see United Way and Missoula Kids Matter branded materials in the community, because we want to advertise it both to eligible families who would participate in these programs, family strengthening programs, if they knew about them, as well as to donors in the community who would want to support these programs through United Way if they knew about them. We've got a display board out there with my business card and the business card of Lacey Nelson, who's our community impact manager. Happy to answer more questions. 5 minutes is a little quick to describe a new initiative like this in its entirety, but probably not too little time to say the obvious, that all Missoula kids deserve to be safe and to thrive and to reach their full potential. Even one neglected and abused child is too many. All Missoula kids matter. Thank you for all you're doing to strengthen families and children.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker wears many hats, as do most of you. She's going to speak to you as a parent. Donna Hamilton. Oh.
I'm short.
There you are.
Typically, I don't need one of these, but... Well, I've got good news and I have bad news. I suppose you want the good news first, and that is, I'm only going to be here for a short time. Bad news is I'm here to let you know of a new initiative called the Kids Levy that we're going to put on the June 3rd ballot, and what this is for substance abuse prevention. We're calling it the Kids Levy because some of the funds that we raise from this, which we approximate at about $370,000 if it passes, will go to programs such as Flagship and Project Success, law enforcement, and the Missoula Forum. These are programs that are losing funds, and this is a way to try to help these programs exist. You all know what value that has. As you've heard many times already today, prevention is the key. By the time our kids are in high school, it's too late, because they've already been tempted with drugs and alcohol, tobacco, and many other things that I'm sure I don't want to even know about. I have 3 daughters that are grown, well, fairly grown. My youngest is 18. I have to go to court with her in 2 weeks. I'm not happy about that. I'm not blaming anyone, and I'm not asking you to pay for anything that she does. But I've got to tell you, each and every one of us has been touched by some sort of substance abuse. And I don't care if it's a family member that has had a DUI, that is dying of cancer, or has committed suicide. We all know someone. And we're just asking you to take a look at this levy on June 3rd and spread the news if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. The next person I'd like to introduce is Beth Richardson. Lieutenant Governor Bollinger talked about the school readiness team, and she's going to follow up with what's happening locally.
The whole idea of making sure the children are ready for school isn't a new idea to Missoula. For almost 9 years, agencies and organizations concerned about young children have come together under the auspices of the Healthy Start Council and the Missoula Forum for Children and Youth in an effort to make sure that children get a good start in life. In 2004, the Healthy Start Council and its partners received Early Learning Opportunities Grant to help promote early literacy throughout Missoula. And now Missoula has joined the statewide School Readiness Initiative. In 2006, as Lieutenant Governor Bollinger indicated earlier, they did have a summit in Helena, and that conference was organized around the school readiness equation that had been developed at the National Governors Association. The equation is ready families plus ready communities plus ready services plus ready schools equal children ready for school. In other words, it shows that we all play a part in getting children ready for school. From that summit, the Missoula School Readiness Team was born. It is now co-sponsored by the Healthy Start Council and WORD. We have representatives from a variety of organizations on our team. There are child care facilities, schools, public health, Head Start and Early Head Start, social services, as well as parents and teachers. We are interested in including others on our team, such as representatives from business and government and the universities, and particularly representatives from the healthcare community. Like the Governors Association, our team knows that children were born ready to learn. The experiences that they have early in their years form the foundation for their growth and development. We also know that the success in learning begins long before kindergarten, and that children's development in all areas needs to be nurtured: physical, social, emotional, and intellectual. So our Missoula team has identified 3 priorities. The first is connecting with families and care providers early. We know that parenting is a tough job and that parents and caregivers of babies and young children need support and information beginning from before birth. So we are trying to provide more information and that is applicable to how they can interact with their children and provide some more insight into those early years as far as the development. The second thing that we've identified is that we want to encourage early screening. Children are always learning new things, and parents need information about what things their child should know at the different stages. So if a child needs some help, the sooner we can get some intervention, the better it is for that child. And the third priority that we have identified is that we want to provide training about school readiness. We all play a part in helping children get ready for school, and we want to let everyone know what those parts are. To join the team or for more information, there are several representatives here. Would you stand up, please? A lot of you may know people around, and we're all happy to give you information. We also have a table out front with some information about the school readiness team. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
I really tried hard to get somebody to come to release this economic impact study to us here for the first time, but I didn't succeed. So I'm here to tell you the dates that they are going to release the study of the economic impact of the early care and education industry in Montana. That's what the title is. They are going to be releasing it at the State Work Investment Board meeting, May 20th and 21st. It's in Billings, unfortunately. And also at the School Readiness Summit, May 21st and 22nd at the Helena Cathedral. And we actually are taking a team to that. So if anybody is interested and is particularly interested in this study, you're welcome to carpool with us. This study is going to look at, or has already looked at, the contributions that the early care industry makes with respect to workforce development in Montana, and also about the financial impact of the early care industry on the state as a whole. A similar study was done, I thought it was the state of California, but perhaps it was only the Los Angeles area, and it was really quite amazing what financial impact the early care and education industry has on the economy. So those are the dates. Keep your eyes open for them. And Mary Glenn, you want to close this? All right. I just wanted to draw your attention to the statistics on the back of your agenda, because I put some early childhood statistics there, and I put some, yay, we're doing good ones, we're doing okay, but we could be doing better, and then some statistics that are kind of depressing. And I also want to thank you all for being here, for your dedication to early childhood. And I want to thank St. Pat's one more time for providing lunch and this wonderful space for us. Please help us by bussing your plates, because I don't want to do it by myself. Thanks very much.